Hello, we're midway through 2025 and we're trying to figure out who will be our next Ozeki. Salt-throw!
Throw the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello and welcome to the Dohyo here on Mr. JWags channel. We are back with our Who Will Be Our Next Ozeki rankings. Now for those of you who are new to the channel, every 6 months or so we like to update our sumo rankings. We have just done the charts of our tiers Makuuchi rankings, so check that out. But this is Who Will Be Our Next Ozeki rankings. This is where we go through and we try to figure out over the next 9 basho or through the end of 2026 who has the best chance of being promoted to Ozeki. Not necessarily who will get there first, but who has the best chance over the next 9 basho. Now, longtime viewers will also know that this is normally like packaged with the Who Will Be Our Next Yokozuna episode, but we're not going to be doing that this time. First of all, at the end of last year, the last time we did these rankings, we had 3 young, fresh Ozeki who I thought all had great chances to be Yokozuna this year, and 2 of them made it. So right now we have 1 Ozeki, Kodazakura, who's really not doing that well. So, since you need to become an Ozeki before you become a Yokozuna, it seemed like that episode was going to be very, very brief. But I will be happy to bring that episode back once we have a few more Ozeki in the hopper. And the first thing we need to talk about is who is off the list since the last time we did this in December. Unfortunately, first up is Atami Fuji. Yeah, this year has been sort of a process of me getting off of the Atami Fuji hype train. I used to think he was going to be a Sanyaku regular for years, but that just has not been the case. Like in 2023, when he made his second try at Makuuchi, he hit us like a thunderbolt. Back-to-back 11 and 4 Junyusho with special prizes. And then in the 9 basho since then, he hasn't gotten more than 8 wins in a tournament. And all of those have been at Maegashira. I know Atami Fuji has been dealing with some injuries. He's got that hip arthritis, which is probably never going to fully go away. But he's only 22. He is still young enough to get healthy and make a comeback. I just don't see a realistic path to Atami Fuji making Ozeki in the next 9 basho. Also off the list, Wakamoto Haru and Abi. Now both these guys are excellent wrestlers. I expect them to continue to be like Sanyaku Joy fixtures, but I just don't see them having the consistency to be able to get like double-digit wins in the Sanyaku regularly. Both of them are on the wrong side of 30, and frankly, this year they haven't been doing that well. The 2 of them combined have 1 winning record this year. So while I do think they're both excellent wrestlers and they're going to be able to stay up in like the Joy Sanyaku region, I just don't see anything out of them that makes me think double-digit wins, 3 tournaments in a row is going to happen. And I know 33 over 3 is like the Ozeki standard, but not necessarily, so we've already discussed this. Check it out. And we do have a few honorable mentions to mention. We have 3 young hotnesses who I'm very optimistic about, but I'm not sure they're going to get there before the end of 2026. First up, Onokatsu. Only 25, coming off back-to-back 10 and 5 basho. I just don't see him having sort of like the same lightning bolt ability that we have seen from other recent wrestlers like Onosato or to a lesser extent Aonishiki. I think he has a shot at making the Sanyaku this year, but I don't see him necessarily dominating. Although, at 25, time is on his side. I do think there is a bump in his sumo coming once he gets a little more familiar with the guys at the top of the Makuuchi rank. Next honorable mention, Kusano. Now, it's a little weird to put this guy in an honorable mentions when he hasn't even made his Makuuchi debut yet, but he's only spent 2 tournaments in Judo, and he won Yusho in both of them for a combined 27 wins over 2 tournaments. Now, he is indeed the young hotness, and he's a pre-peak wrestler, but he is going to be 24 before the next tournament, which is a little older than I think a lot of us thought he was. So while I do think he's exceptionally talented, I don't see him making Ozeki in the next year and a half. I do expect a lot of good things from him. I just don't think... I think Onosato is a very unique case, and we only get like 1 of those per sumo generation. I do expect Kusano to have an amazing career, and I expect to see him in the Sanyaku in the next 9 tournaments. And last up, Hakuoho, a guy who is sort of as young as we remember him being. Remember, he made his Makuuchi debut at age 19. But of course, since then, he has become a veteran of going Kyujo with the shoulder and the ankle injuries. If you remember last tournament, he ended up going from like day 1, very few reps, to day 15, very many reps. So the injury, plus the fact that there's all the distractions going on with the Miyagino Isagahama stable stuff, he was a recruit of Hakuho, so I'm not sure if his absence is going to be less distracting and helpful, or it's going to be like a soul-crushing and hurt his sumo. We're going to find out. And though I am optimistic, there are a lot of excellent young wrestlers ahead of him in the Banzake right now that he's going to have to fight through to get Ozeki. So yes, optimistic, don't think it's going to happen before the end of 2026. Number 6, Takeru Fuji. Now, Takeru Fuji is a fascinating case. Of course, last year he ended up winning a Makauchi Yusho in his Makauchi debut, immediately got hurt, fell down the Banzake, came back. He's 26 and only has 6 Basho in Makauchi. His upward momentum seemed to have been arrested at Maegashira 4, his first time in the Joy, his first non-Kyujo losing record with a 6-9. I do believe he is going to bounce back. I think his ultimate ceiling is going to be a top 10 wrestler. But just turning 26, not quite the young hotness he used to be, and the fact that he has a long and storied injury history as well. Not just talking about the ankle that he hurt while winning his Yusho, but going back to high school, he has a torn ACL. It's just that he is young, but there is a lot of miles. Number 5, Daisho. Now, I think a lot of us tend to forget about Daisho because he's just so incredibly consistent. He made his Sanyaku debut in January of 2020, and in the 32 Basho since, 23 of them have been in the Sanyaku, never being ranked lower than Maegashira 4. Now, he is a Sekiwake, and he is currently on an Ozeki run, having gotten winning records in his last 2 tournaments. He has 19 wins over the last 2, which means at least 13 is what he would need to get anywhere near an Ozeki consideration. He's only gotten 13-2 once in his career. That was, of course, his Yusho back in 2021. Do I think he's going to do it this time? No. The double-digit wins seem to be a bit spaced farther apart than they used to be for Daisho. He tends not to do very well in July, and then there's, of course, that hypothesis that pusher thrusters don't do well in July just because people are a little more sweaty and slick. However, I could see him getting like another 10-11 win Basho and then end up extending this Ozeki run a little bit later in the year. Number 4, Oho. Now, it seems like Oho has been around for a while. Remember, he made his Makauchi debut all the way back in 2022, so he's been around for like 3.5 years, but he's never quite had the breakout we've expected of someone with such a great sumo body and such an amazing sumo pedigree. Of course, him being the grandson of Dai Yokozuna Taiho. And we have seen flashes of greatness out of Oho. This past January, he got a 12-3 Junyusho playoff loss, his first ever Sansho, made it up to the Sanyaku for the first time, 2 consecutive losing records. Yeah, this seems to be the big bugaboo with Oho. It is the exact opposite of Daisho. It is the lack of consistency that I'm worried about here. I think that at this moment, Daisho is the superior wrestler to Oho, but Oho's career has been sort of marked with these sort of jumps ahead and then like a regathering and then another jump ahead in the Banzake. Well, he's out of jumps to make, so it seems if he's going to have another great tournament, it's going to have to come against the Joy Sanyaku region. So I'm hoping that the next jump will be a jump into a greater consistency, as he will be facing largely the same opponents, I think, for the rest of the year. But yes, an Ozeki run out of Oho would mean a giant leap ahead in his consistency over multiple Basho. Number 3, this is where we start to get the fun stuff. Ao Nishiki. He just turned 21. He's only has 2 Makauchi Basho, and both of them 11-4s plus a Kanto show, which seems remarkably similar to how we just described Atami Fuji. So it's like, I have a little bit of worry about it, but I do think he is fundamentally a better wrestler than Atami Fuji was when he was making his initial push into Makauchi. Now, as I pointed out about Ono Sato charged through the ranks, never had a losing record, and now that he's Yokozuna, has never been demoted. A few of you brought up, well, Ao Nishiki's never had a losing record yet. Yes, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. As we just saw with Takeru Fuji, hitting the Joy for the first time is usually a very rude awakening for most Rikishi. So while I'm very optimistic for an Ao Nishiki Ozeki run by the end of 2026, I don't think it's going to come this year. I think he's going to hit some form of ceiling before we get to the first initial Ozeki run. And also, remember, he hasn't started the Ozeki run yet. You have to start it from Maegashira 4 or above. So if he keeps going the way he's been going, he mathematically could make it by the end of the year, but I think 2026, much more likely. Number 2, Kirishima. Now, of course, Kirishima is a 2-time former champion and former Ozeki. Now, the thing keeping him from retaking Ozeki seems to be the health. He seems to be alternating great double-digit win tournaments with sort of meh tournaments between 6 and 8 wins. But this time, fortunately, he has gotten an 8-win back-to-back with an 11-win, which gives him 19 wins going into the next Basho. So like Dohyo, a 13-2 I think would get him some serious Ozeki consideration. But as with Dohyo, he's only gotten a 13-2 once, and in the case of Kirishima, it was his second Yusho. And although Kirishima is in a very similar situation to Dohyo, I just think that Kirishima is a fundamentally better wrestler at this point, which is why he's so much higher on the rankings. Here's hoping for 6 months of good health and a Ozeki promotion for Kirishima in the near future. Now this takes us up to number 1, and it's the same person who was number 1 when we did this back in December. Remember, we haven't promoted any new Ozeki since then. Yes, it's Waka Takakage. Now, in December, when we looked at this, he was still working his way back up through the injury. He was charging up through Maegashira, and he had made it up to Maegashira 2, had a great tournament. 7-8 in January, I was a little worried. I thought we had hit a ceiling. I thought he had taken a little bit of a step back in skill, but no. 9 wins, 12 wins, and that 12 wins came at Komusubi. So this tells me Waka Takakage is at least as good, if not better, than he was the first time he made it up to the Sanyaku. And I would argue that the Banzuke now is stronger than it was when he won his Yusho in March of 2022. Back then, we only had one Yokozuna, and he was Terunofuji, and he was hurt. And in the Sanyaku and the joy of that tournament, the only person who was even in contention on the final weekend was Mitakeumi in his Ozeki debut, and that was sort of like the last gasp of good Mitakeumi. Now, he is on the wrong side of 30, but I think with his discipline and the fact that he's a bit of a svelter sumo figure, which I think will give less stress to his joints long term, I think he can keep up this level of sumo for at least 2 more years. And unlike Kirishima and Dohyo, he has 21 wins over his last 2 tournaments, which means he basically just needs a redo of what he did in the last tournament, maybe even only 11 wins to get him up to Ozeki. Now, I've been saying for a while now, I think it's going to be very hard for a new Ozeki to break through this year, especially with 2 young, hungry Yokozuna. But I think if one person does it this year, it's going to be Waka Takakage. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Dohyo. Please, if you have not, like, subscribe, comment. Interacting with the site is the way YouTube expresses love. And also, it helps the channel for absolutely free. And if you got a little extra change rolling around in your pockets, consider supporting us at the Patreon. We're having so much fun over there. We're going to have our members-only Hagaki-oi in about a week or 2. And remember, the more you support, the more episodes there will be. Stay tuned to the channel. We have all of our July coverage coming up. We have the Terunofuji graph-heavy Yokozuna Kyujo episode, which is still in process, and you're not going to want to miss that either. So everyone, stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.